Mic's on? All right, so let's call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque for March 12th, 2024 to order. Okay, it looks like we're at 7:02 up there. We'll call that the official start time today. And let's see, we've got the oath of office for new commissioners is what we've got on here. Let's start with that. It's a little out of order from what was online.
For the agenda?
Yes, it is.
The same as posted. I'll introduce the deferral in a minute, but this is the signed agenda that was posted.
Okay.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to get to swear in the new commissioners. So I will start with Ms. Talia Pietra. How about that? Yes. So if you'll repeat after me, but I'll say I, and then you will say your name, and then follow me along. All right?
I,
Your name,
Drew Talia Pietra,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the State of New Mexico,
the Constitution and the laws of the State of New Mexico,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
and I will faithfully and
impartially
discharge the duties
of the office of the Planning and Zoning Commissioner
of the Office of Planning and Zoning Commissioner
of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque
of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque
under penalty of New Mexico law.
under penalty of New Mexico law.
If I can get you to sign that. Then we will do the same thing with, and it's I
Claire Haywood,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the constitutions and laws of the State of New Mexico,
and the Constitution and law of the State of New Mexico,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
and I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of the office of the Planning and Zoning Commissioner
of the Office of the Planning and Zoning Commissioner
of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque
of the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque
under penalty of New Mexico law.
under penalty of New Mexico law.
And if I could get you to sign that, I have a pen here if you need it. Thank you very much. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Chappell. Okay, so let's go on with the roll call. So please answer that you're here after this. Commissioner Barrow?
Present.
Commissioner Martinez?
Present.
Commissioner Edward?
Here. Present.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Present.
Commissioner Tagliapietra?
Talia Pietra.
Okay.
Present.
Commissioner Claire Haywood?
Present.
And Commissioner Homan, I'm present. All right. So let the record reflect that we've got a quorum present for the meeting. And let's move on to the approval of the agenda. Director Rubin, is there any changes to the agenda proposed?
Vice Chair, there is one change to the agenda. I recommend one change. The applicant for agenda item 4A has requested a deferral to the April P&Z meeting. This is due to the need to apply for a second variance to address a related issue for the project. After discussing options with the applicant, we both agreed this would be the best path forward. The deferral request is included in the packet materials for item 4A.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Commissioner Barrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Edward,
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin.
Yes.
Okay, my second.
Yes.
Commissioner Haywood
Yes.
and Commissioner Homan, yes. Okay, the motion carries unanimously. We'll go on now to the public comment period. Residents may address the Planning and Zoning Commission to comment on issues, problems, or successes on topics that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. Audience members will be given an opportunity to comment on agenda items as they come up. Speakers must register with the village staff prior to beginning the meeting. There was a sign-up sheet or a number of sign-up sheets. Do we have anyone signed up? Okay, is there anyone present in the audience that didn't have the opportunity to sign up that would wish to speak on a non-agenda item? Seeing and hearing none, let's go forward. Okay. Let's go on to the consent agenda then. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item must be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Are there any corrections or wishes to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
I apologize, that sounds duplicative of the agenda.
Oh, sorry.
Did I miss?
Approval of the minutes.
We
Is
did
approval of the
already
minutes.
approve
It's-
that. Does it say consent agenda? I apologize. Let's go down
It's
to,
part of the consent agenda,
correct. Okay, proceed.
okay? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as proposed. Once again, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Edward,
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin,
Yes.
Commissioner Taglia,
Just say Drew.
Drew,
Yes.
Commissioner Haywood,
Yes.
Commissioner Homan, yes. So the motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to the public hearings and applications. As referenced earlier in the approval of the agenda, our first planned item, 4A, has been deferred to our April meeting. So we'll move on to public hearing 4B. And let's see, 4B is a request by Carolyn Orcutt, I hope I said that correctly, for a request for a variance from subsection 9.2.11 E2A, requiring a 10-foot side yard setback distance. The property is zoned R3 and is located within the 4th Street character area. The property is located at 363 Tyler Road, Northwest, and is legally known as Lot 7, Kingsbury Addition. The property contains .32 acres, more or less. Are there any commissioners who will recuse themselves from this item? Hearing and seeing no one, Director Rubin, may we have the planning report? Do we need to go ahead and? Okay. If there is anyone in the audience that's wishing to speak on this matter, please stand and be sworn in.
Yep, anyone that is to speak on this, including the applicants, if you would stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Director Rubin.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So the application in front of you is a request for a variance from section 9.2.11 E2A, requiring a 10-foot side yard setback distance. The property is zoned R3 and is located within the 4th Street character area. And the address is 363 Tyler Road Northwest. The owner is seeking a building permit to construct a new bathroom addition and covered porch for their existing home. During the associated plan review, it was discovered that 3 accessory buildings, storage sheds, are located within the western side yard of the property that did not meet the required 10-foot side yard setback distance. The storage shed closest to the existing home appears to be legally nonconforming to current side yard setback standards. However, the 2 sheds behind the home were placed on the property without village review/approval in 2018. Both buildings are 1.5 feet from the side property line and are each 120 square feet in area. For staff's analysis, compliance with the master plan, under section 2.1.2 Village Form Policies and Action Steps in the master plan, Policy A action steps includes the provision to enforce village zoning and ordinance requirements. This policy supports the implementation of and adherence to established setback requirements for the R3 zone. Placement of the 2 sheds within the 10-foot side yard setback distance, even if the contractor performing the work was unknowing or unfamiliar with the local standards, simply does not comply with the village development regulations, does not conform. In terms of the public interest and material adverse impacts on adjacent property, the neighborhood, and the community, one facet of public interest is conformity with the adopted goals and policies of the village master plan, as noted above. Adherence to setback requirements ensures uniform, predictable growth patterns, prevents overcrowding of land, and promotes community safety standards. To address adverse impacts on adjacent property and the neighborhood, the department received 1 letter in support of the application prior to the comment deadline and none in opposition. Staff finds that this may conform. For the unnecessary hardship criteria 9.2.25 E7B2, while the placement of the sheds may be similar to other properties in the area, staff does not find that the parcel is exceptional by reason of the condition or use of the parcel or other land in the vicinity which condition or use existed when the provisions were adopted and does not conform. For hardship criteria 4, while the applicant notes that they do not believe the storage sheds can be relocated because of the covered patio, trees, and electrical wires nearby, these features and considerations are common to all property developments and do not prohibit reasonable use. Staff can appreciate the applicant's desire to have the sheds remain in their current location due to the impracticality of locating them elsewhere on the property. However, criteria 4 states, circumstances have created a condition under which no reasonable use can be made of the land without the requested variance. Staff does not find that there are circumstances associated with the lot creating a condition under which no reasonable use can be made of the land without the requested variance. So staff recommends that this does not conform. In terms of hardship criteria number 5, the applicant's justification letter states, we believe the storage sheds as they are positioned now are an asset to the property, the neighborhood, and the village. They are designed attractively, in good condition, and align with the character of the street and surrounding area. Staff does not find that criteria 5 has been met. However, criteria 5 provides the commission with flexibility for decision-making based on each individual request. The Planning and Zoning Commission must determine whether other relevant factors exist that, when taken into account, indicate that granting of the variance is substantially justifiable, giving proper weight to the interests of the property owner, the public interest in protecting and fostering the character of the vicinity and the village, and the intent and purpose of the master plan and zoning code. So this may or may not conform. The department recommends denial of V2402, request for a variance from section 9.2.1.1 E2A, requiring a 10-foot side yard setback distance to allow 2 existing accessory buildings to be just 1.5 feet from the west side of the property line of the subject site in the R3 zone within the 4th Street character area, with the findings included in your planning report. However, should the Planning Commission find that criteria 5 is met and the variance should be granted, findings and conditions for approval are also included in your report. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions from the commission? For Dr. Rubin, for Director Rubin?
I do. So what is the side setback requirement of the development that immediately? Oh, I'm so sorry. What is the side setback or other setback requirements in that planned unit development? I think it was SU1 immediately to the north.
I could look, but it would take me a minute.
Is that R1 or A1, you think?
The properties to the east, west, and south are R3, so to the north are SU1 for the planned residential development, and I would have to look.
I think that's somewhat meaningful. And if this was A1, what is that side setback requirement?
I don't want to misquote, so let me look real quick. A1 is, I don't believe so. I have
I
it up
think it's
though.
10.
In the A1 zone, I believe the side setback was what you were requesting, 15 feet.
15 feet, okay.
Are there any other questions for Director Rubin?
I do. How many other properties on that street have sought for variances for their structures?
I'd have to look into that. I don't know at this time, Vice Chair and Commissioner.
I mean, I would say that I drove down that street and looked at everything, and I bet you 2/3 of the properties there are within 6 inches to 3 feet of the side fence, assuming that the fence is even on the property line.
Vice Chair and Commissioner, we concur that there are, many other properties with sheds as noted by the applicant in that area within the side yard setback. When it comes before our office, it's typically when, either we see it being erected or unfortunately, the applicant comes in to do another project, as is the case here, and that's when it comes to our attention and we need to enforce the zoning code.
It kind of forces people to break the law because they'd be afraid to come in and actually file for a permit. And I'm just kind of wondering, why isn't there more code enforcement going on when so many of these other structures have been going in and there doesn't seem to be any history or knowledge in this case as to whether variances were granted?
Vice Chair and Commissioner, definitely feel free to contact staff ahead of time and I can do that research, but I don't have it in front of me. But as for code enforcement, we're a small village and we do what we can. We respond to calls. We look, we're actually in between code enforcement officers right now, as indicated in my planning report. We're hoping to hire someone soon, so we're doing what we can.
Do we have time for more questions later after they present?
The Vice Chair and Commissioner, the Commission will get a chance to discuss
Okay,
as
great.
well.
Commissioner Martinez?
What I like to do is, part of this is being able to communicate with MEDA and get answers. One of my main questions was, what about the existing one that they got approval on? And I was very blessed to have a 10-minute conversation with her, and I'd like to share that if that's okay. Part of their job is to understand that before it came a village, it was a county. And they have aerials, they have all the specificness that they need to enforce whatever they need to enforce. So the uniqueness about this specific property and the reason that that other one was approved, even with 0 lot line, was they could not show that it was in compliance with when the village got it over. So they almost had, there's a word called grandfathered in. And so that's one of the things that we have to understand as commissioners, the deeper part of what's happening over here. So with that one that they pre-approved, that was because they could not, by aerials or by time, prove that it was done within the village time of zoning rules and regulations. And so with that, it's appreciative to your question. There is a ton of properties that are going to be in that conformance, that at what point, I'd like to give credit to them because what they do is they do due diligence and they do checking up on it. So this specific one was approved just because of time and county and the village and zoning regulations. And the other ones were within the time frame. It falls within something that they have the ability to work with. So I just want to give you a little feedback because that has a lot to do with partially what you're asking about the other neighbors, because there is a lot of other properties that probably we're going to be seeing, and hopefully they'll be continue going on their due diligence of checking when it was and what was grandfathered and what wasn't.
If I might just add to Commissioner Martinez's comment, over time, the village is annexed and incorporated other areas into it. We're small, but we've grown through the years. And so we've ended up with kind of a hodgepodge at times of what was applicable to different pieces as it's been brought into the village. So it's difficult and it's a very challenging role at the P&Z. We appreciate your diligence on that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. We do what we can to do the research. We know we're not catching everything, and we know that there may be other sheds that are illegally non-conforming as well. So hodgepodge may be the best terminology.
All right, let's go ahead and go forward. Is the applicant present? I believe they are. If you will come to the speaker and if you will state your name and address, please, for the record.
Yes, my name is Caroline Orcutt. I live at 363 Tyler Road Northwest.
My name is Bud Latvin. I live at 363 Tyler Road Northwest.
Would you like to give us a brief explanation of your request?
Yes, so we're applying for the variance for our storage sheds. And I'd just like to give a statement about how we got here. We found out about this at the same time that you did when we were applying for the permit for building a master bathroom. And we actually looked into the requirements before we built the storage sheds. We called the village and were told that the setback area applied to buildings over 120 square feet. So we were told that by a staff member before we did any building at all. And just a few years before we built our storage sheds, our neighbor to the west of us built a larger storage shed right up next to our property and to their back property line. And then when we approached Tough Shed, in order to do the building, they told us the same thing. So we had no clue that there was any problem because of all these sources, until we applied for the building permit for our addition. So we're kind of shocked that this is the case. And we submitted an aerial photo that shows our adjacent neighbors and our neighbors close by all have storage sheds against their property lines. And then we looked at the entire street and found that 12 of the 14 houses closest to us all have outbuildings next to their property lines. So again, this is consistent with what we did, and we were told by the village staff that it was okay if the building was 120 square feet or smaller. We had actually wanted to build a larger storage shed, but we made them smaller to comply with what we were told. One of the two properties that does not have a storage shed or an outbuilding next to their property line is actually a larger lot. It's a lot and a half. So they have much more room to put their outbuildings closer in on the property. So all of our properties are a third of an acre, which doesn't give a lot of room to build places to keep our equipment and supplies to take care of the property. So that's what we use them for. We've been able to do maintenance and improvements to our property that we weren't able to do before we had these storage sheds. And interestingly enough, although, you know, unfortunately they're out of compliance, when our neighbors or when other friends come over, they love them. They can see how useful they are, they're attractive, they provide shade on our patio. We didn't used to be able to use our patio because it was so hot. And, you know, lots of other reasons. So we've found them to be a real asset to us and to our property and to the neighborhood. So I think it would be unfortunate if, you know, they had to be removed. It would make that area of the property barren and useless. It would take a long time to build up landscaping there. And of course, we will also want to build our addition, but, you know, honestly, we found these outbuildings to be extremely helpful. So I think that's probably it. Did you want to add anything?
No, I think you did really good.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Okay. Yes, okay, so we've got the commissioners. Would any of the commissioners like to ask them any questions? You might go back up there, please. Yes. Commissioner Tagliapedria.
Commissioner Drew, it's okay.
Tell you.
I just have a question. In the picture that you submitted with your pergola and your outbuildings, and then there's a red building over the wall, is that the other,
That's our neighbor's storage shed.
that's your neighbor's storage shed?
Yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to,
yeah.
thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Martinez?
I agree with you. They are beautiful buildings. They definitely are. I kind of, when I saw it, I said, this isn't a shed. So my question is, do you have utilities in there?
No,
No, they both just are empty?
they're empty, they're not insulated. We keep our
Wow.
gardening tools and, you know, blowers and gardening supplies and stuff like that in there.
They are beautiful sheds.
Yeah, yeah, we've enjoyed them quite a bit, so.
Thank you.
There's one electric line that goes into one shed for lights.
Okay. I was just more concerned about water and miscellaneous, but,
No,
okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
I do. Are they on a slab?
no. They're on gravel.
Okay. And were they constructed at the same time?
In the same year, one and then the second one.
We liked the first one so much. We found it so useful, we had another one.
Okay.
Any other commissioner questions? Okay. I have a
I
list.
do want to compliment you. Your house looks nice, by the way.
Thank you.
All right. I have a list of those who signed up to speak on this item. And let's call those that are in favor. Do we have anybody in favor of this project? Okay, so then I have to assume this is somebody that's in opposition. No, this is just you folks. Okay. That's it. That's just the only one. Okay, gotcha. All righty. So with that, let's just continue the discussion. Do we have any other questions among ourselves, discussion among ourselves? Any other questions of Director Rubin? Yes. Commissioner Baldwin.
This one is challenging in some regards and very easy in others. I think, a strict read has it as a non-conforming, not properly permitted use. And at the same time, I'm sympathetic to the idea that there was outreach to try to find the answer and, a genuine belief that the direction they were given gave them the go-ahead to do as they have done. I think, every time that we have something that comes before us, it's an opportunity to kind of learn and provide some feedback as a village, as a planning and zoning commission. And I think the thing I take from this particular one is it's not intuitive necessarily to know what the rules and regulations are when you're trying to do something simple, like a shed. And you can dig through the stuff and you can find the setbacks and you can do all that with a little digging. And I wonder if there isn't an opportunity for us in the village vision and maybe an FAQ that is more layperson available to, so you want to put a shed in your yard? Because that's a very typical thing, right? A shed, a pergola. We just did a ramada in our backyard, and I dug through a lot more than I thought I was going to, and there's a lot more back and forth in getting that properly done. And it wasn't necessarily always intuitive. So I look at this particular case and I'm sympathetic to the hardship requirement under 5. I think that they genuinely believe they had direction to go ahead as planned.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
I think this is a good example of the hodgepodge that we inherit and have to then regulate to go forward. Hodgepodge is a technical term for hodgepodge.
So I have a comment, and I agree with everything that they say that I wanted to kind of bring up. So you had one storage shed built just under 120, and then a couple months later, you build another one for 120. And it kind of begins to look like a series, a train of storage sheds. You got 3 storage sheds there of 120 square feet each, which adds up to 360 square feet. And, let's say you weren't going to do your addition. At what point do you add another 120 square foot storage shed? And, we've got a village of storage sheds. And so it that kind of goes into some of my thinking here about how this goes, that water will find a way into a leaky roof. And I'm just thinking that at what point do people, you're right under the radar. And I think it's important we have planning and zoning, because if you look at other foreign countries like Haiti, when there's an earthquake, people don't have permits for their construction and people die. And that's why we do this, so we don't anybody get hurt. And I understand your question about water in there. All you have to do is go on YouTube and Instagram, and these things turn into pretty fancy man caves, and the next thing you know, it's a guest house and a casita, and they're joined together. Those are just some of my thoughts on it. As compared to the neighborhood, your house, the yard is well taken care of as anybody's. Your stucco looks great. These look nice. And so I respect the fact that you want to have a nice place, because we all live here together.
I must reflect that over the years, I know when we put a shed in, we were told that it had to be, at 120 feet, it had to be permitted. But if it was less than 120, then you were okay. However, it couldn't be on a permanent base. And at other times, it's where do you measure it from? Is it just the footprint that's being there on the ground? Or does it include the roof? So there's a lot of confusion. And I do support Commissioner Baldwin's comment about let's do some, FAQs in the Village Vision. And this is a great one to start with because it is such a common request and need for storage out there. So if there's no more questions among the commissioners, we've had our insights and reflections and questions we've asked. Do I hear a motion?
I have one quick question first. How does this relate to the FAR of the lot?
It's out there.
Vice Chair and Commissioner, so this relates to the FAR of the lot in that it counts toward the FAR. It's something that when, we potentially process their application for an addition, that is factored in.
And so are they under the FAR?
I believe so.
With
And
this
that'll
new
be
addition?
confirmed at that point as well.
With the new addition and all the
I
structures?
believe so.
Okay.
But we don't approve applications that are exceeding the FAR.
Commissioner Martinez?
My comment is for us. And one of the things that I want to bring to us, because we're a new group, is that this is going to be coming in, and the question that we have to ask ourselves, when they do a subdivision and they do a lot and they do setbacks, at what point does the rules and regulations of what exists exist? Those setbacks were specifically there for a reason. And so I agree with everybody that we are in a hodgepodge situation, but at what point in time are they going to realize that we are going to be very beneficial to exactly from everything that you said? And at what point do we take planning and zoning and setbacks and rules and regulations for the village? And I said this last year, it's a very hard thing for us. Last year we had some things that were just tearjerkers. But at what point do we put on the hat of planning and zoning and take off the hat of sympathy? And I think that's what we just have to, within ourselves, because everything that's said tonight is above board. Everything that she defined, everything that everybody defines, I think what we need to do as a planning and zoning, really start making decisions of how we're going to carry it forward. Because I appreciate your comment of a leaky water. We'll follow it. Mm-hmm. At what point are we going to get swamped in with people saying, okay, they're allowing, setbacks don't make a difference. And so that's the only comment that I would, which absolutely has nothing to do with what's going on here. I'm just trying to be a person that wants to follow what we were sworn to do, and that's planning and zoning and rules and regulations. And unfortunately, we find ourselves getting caught up into that hodgepodge. And that was my only comment.
I have a question that just popped into my mind for the applicant, if I may ask that, and I'll have to have you go back over. So you have these beautiful sheds. We all agree they're quite tastefully done. Your yard is wonderful. If you're not granted the variance, they're not on a permanent structure base. As you stated, they're on gravel. Isn't there somewhere else you can move them on your property that would be within code? It may not be where you wish them to be, but...
So all of the area that's not a setback area is landscaped with, water systems, high efficiency sprinklers and drip systems, trees, xeriscaping. It would be quite costly, and to be honest, it would not be useful. I mean, it would either block our view or take away the part of the yard that we use. And our yards aren't that big. Like I said, it's a smaller property for Los Ranchos, so not really. I mean, that's why we ended up putting them there. And we didn't I mean, we'd been thinking about it for a long time, and until we put the first one in, we didn't realize how beneficial it would be. I mean, it's just transformed. I mean, the reason our property looks as good as it does is because we've had a place to keep our tools, a place to buy and store new tools and to access them easily. Before that, you know, we had to keep things in the garage and just didn't work as well. So not really. I mean, we tried, but we couldn't, we just, there isn't a place we would want to put them, so.
And although the diagrams that you've presented in your packet, they don't include where the utility right-of-ways are. So, I mean, do you know if the utility right-of-way is under the sheds? I mean, if so, the utility has the ability to do work and have you move them at that point in time. Just so if you don't know that yet, that you should know it. Okay.
The electric company, they came and upgraded our electric panel for the proposed bathroom. And they said all the electric is to code and the main utilities are run along the back of the property. So there's no issue with water that comes in somewhere else. So,
In gas?
pardon me.
In
And
gas.
gas is on the other side of the house, on the east side.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Baldwin?
Thank you, Vice Chair. For me, because you're right, the question is, there can always be a rationale for any variance that comes in front of us. If this was a situation where the letter that had been written to us said we took the direction of, Tough Shed, and they said 120, and we didn't need a permit, and we took them at their faith, I wouldn't be sympathetic. The difference to me is that they contacted the village and they were told something by staff. That's a different weight. It changes the dynamics, I think, for me in this case. And for anyone else out there, please have proof that you've talked to the village, because we are not setting a precedent for everyone saying that they talked to the village about things. But to me, that's the difference. I would be making a motion for denial if it was that.
So you move for denial?
No.
Okay.
I
let's hear-
want to hear what other folks have
Okay.
to say. I feel like I've talked a lot about this one.
Further discussion?
It's tough, man. It's really tough. Pardon the French, but, the Johnny Hard-ass in me says, hey, man, you're breaking the rules. I drive around this village all the time. People are breaking the rules everywhere. It's like the guy who was in here in the prior meeting, he talked about how he helped develop the property next door. And the thing is just littered with weeds, and we still haven't done anything about it as a village. And they're like 6 feet tall. And so I like how you take care of your property, man. You got pride of ownership. That means a lot to me. But you're breaking the rules. And I would say, hey, would you give up one storage shed in exchange for the variance? Is there a way to negotiate this? Is there middle ground? Could your addition have the square footage of one of the storage sheds? These are the things that kind of play around, and I don't know if it's within this body to ask those questions or have those discussions.
Maida, may I ask a question?
Commissioner Drew?
Since it has become aware to us that the red storage shed too is illegal, what will come of that?
Vice Chair and Commissioner, if that's something you would like staff to look into, we can absolutely do that. It's on a complaint basis at the moment. As I said, we're in between code enforcement officers. But, we can't possibly go after every single thing we could
I know,
possibly open
I
our
know,
eyes and
but
see.
it's-
But yeah, if that is something that you would like us to look into, we can look into that also.
But it's kind of hard to take these away and let them keep the red one.
But we don't know what the situation on
And we
this one
don't
is.
know, that's correct, we do not know. But it's still hard.
Yes, I agree.
I think we need to create an environment where people are not afraid to come in here. And I think we need to create an environment that we're not creating a black market of illegal construction. My concern is that these guys are doing it the right way. People would like to do it the right way, but they're afraid to do it the right way. And then we have a lot of substandard construction because it's never been permitted or evaluated or looked at. And that's a real consequence. And the other thing is that when you don't get a permit, you are stealing from your neighbors because it changes the valuation on people's properties. And people are not paying an equivalent fair share of tax, and some people are paying way too much tax because they're living under the radar. And we have to provide an incentive for people to want to come in here and not feel like that they're going to do everything on the black market.
Is there a motion? Commissioner Barrow?
Yes, I move that we honor the findings of the village and decline the request for variance. Number, what is it? I've lost the number now. Yeah, thanks. 232406.
2402.
V2402, I just found it. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? Okay, this is,
I just have one quick question. So Maida, is there any middle ground here?
Vice Chair and Commissioner, from my understanding, the request in front of you is what can be considered. Feel free to add if you would like to.
Chairman and Commissioner Edward, I don't think the Planning Commission at this stage, sitting as a quasi-judicial body, is in a position to negotiate settlements. I think you must determine whether or not the application meets the requirements of the zoning, and on that basis, or if it doesn't meet the requirements, do they meet the criteria for a variance? And I think that's really the role that the commission has to play.
okay, so it has been moved and seconded to uphold the recommendation of the Village's Planning and Zoning Department with the findings that are stated. This is a roll call vote. Commissioner Barrow?
Yes, which declines, yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Martinez? Yes. Commissioner Edward?
I'm voting on the rules. I have to say yes.
Commissioner Baldwin?
I hate this. I really do. And looking at the findings as they are presented and is within our purview, again, I will vote no because I am compelled by the contact with the village, and I think we have a lot of cleanup to do. And please do not, anyone out there, take this as I'm a lightweight on code enforcement. I'm not.
Okay, Commissioner Drew?
This is hard. I'm going to say no.
Commissioner Haywood?
I'm going to say no.
Okay, and Commissioner Homan? This is a hard one because, you know, we're just, do we vote on the rules and upholding it? But I have to go with the fact that you did seek out counsel from the village first. And that even when you had talked to Tough Shed after the fact, assuming that, and they've got a great reputation, and they've put sheds up all over this village and all across the state, that they know the rules and that they've checked with the local entities. So I'm going to say no as well. Okay, so that gives us what? 1, 2, 3, 4 no's. Okay, 4 to 3. So do we have to go with another motion because we've just voted it down?
I've tied in knots now, I'm deferring.
Yeah, because we didn't vote support, we voted. Yes,
I think the Robert Rules of Order say that the motion failed, and so
Yes.
there's nothing established on the floor. You have to
Great.
go with a different motion.
great, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, is there a new motion?
Yes, I would like to move granting the variance V2402 with the findings listed in the staff report for granting the variance.
Okay, is there a second to Commissioner Baldwin's motion?
I will second.
Commissioner Drew with the second. Okay, let's go through another roll call vote. Commissioner Barrow,
No.
Commissioner Martinez,
No.
Commissioner Edward.
So no is not granting the variance, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
We are now granting the variance.
yeah. I thought about what you said earlier about the 120 square foot call into the village. I'm going to change my vote to a yes.
Okay. Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Drew? Commissioner Haywood?
Yes.
Commissioner Homan, yes. The motion passes. So let the record show that the request for variance on V2402 by Caroline Orcutt for a variance from subsection 9.2.11.E to A requiring a 10-foot setback has formally been closed with approval of the variance. Thank you for coming. All right, so now we are on to old business, which there is none. New business. The new business is for the adoption of resolution for 2024. That is Resolution 2024-2, Planning and Zoning Open Meetings Act. Is there any discussion from the commission on this? It is in our packets.
Yes. There's the document that I read through. It talks about notice and everything else. Is that the specific document we're referring to?
Vice Chair and Commissioner, yes, if you'd like me to talk through the proposed changes, I'm happy to.
Please, if you would.
All right, so this is the same resolution that you passed in January with two distinct changes. The Board of Trustees has changed their meeting date and time to the third Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. To avoid confusion and to get us to bed a little earlier, this resolution sets our regular meeting time to 6 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. The other change is to elect officers at the February meeting rather than the March meeting in the future, to line up better with the January board appointments to the commission. Staff feels this will smooth things out a little bit and be a positive improvement.
All right.
I have a question.
Commissioner
It talks about the minutes and everything else. To what degree do we actually talk about the video recordings and the availability of that as a part of this? It's kind of a new world these days, so.
Sure. Vice Chair and Commissioner, I haven't seen that included in here. I can look into whether we typically include it, but I believe this is probably mirroring the Board of Trustees OMA resolution.
And as a reminder, the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings are not televised or, not recorded in a video.
They
Yeah, they are.
are streamed.
They are.
Absolutely. You go on the website, they're right there.
Oh, I
Yeah.
guess it's the, you cannot connect, Zoom. We can't Zoom. That's why I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Correct, yeah.
No AI bots for us.
Right.
Is there any particular legal standing for those recorded meetings and how they're posted?
There's no specific standard for keeping minutes of the meetings. The case law has said that you have to have complete enough to understand the subject matter and the discussion. When it comes time to test those minutes, we found that the better the minutes and more specific the discussion was, the easier it is to support the decisions of the Planning Commission or the Board of Trustees. If they're pretty vague, then everybody can stand up and say, yeah, but this was said at the meeting and that's not in the meeting minutes. And so complete minutes are much better for upholding the actions of the commission.
So would it stand to reason that we should memorialize the fact that this is being recorded and it's available to do exactly what you said?
Commissioner Edwards, that makes it a lot easier for us that are defending the position of the commission when a question comes up, because when I was here, they were not doing that. And now that I can go back for the 4.5 years I wasn't here and see exactly what the Board of Trustees did or the Planning Commission did and respond to somebody to say, this is what happened, rather than guessing and the gaps in the written minutes.
So are we allowed to amend this document to kind of insert that in there?
Insert.
I would say yes. However, my recommendation, and you're going to fix this in a second when I say it, is to not do it on the fly. If you want to see this change, I'd want to make sure we have language that is appropriate.
Chairman and Commissioner Edward, the reason that we don't put that specific in the operating ordinance or the resolution is because we may have a technical difficulty or something that prohibits or keeps it from happening, and you don't want to say, no, we can't have the meeting because that particular function is not working tonight. So you don't want to set a trap for yourself to say it must work and you must have it, or we all have to go home and can't perform any business.
That would be like turning on the sprinklers before a baseball game that you didn't want to play.
That's right.
We're rained out.
I would say that we do keep minutes as you've been approving them. You know, you've read through them, and it helps us make sure that our minutes are as accurate as possible. But I don't know, as the attorney said, it would be quite a bit to hold ourselves to.
Okay.
Should we have a statement at the beginning, like the Board of Trustees does, that says that it's electronic and things can go wrong? And should we have that statement at the beginning of these meetings?
Vice Chair and Commissioner, we could. I believe the reason for that is because folks are trying to participate via Zoom, and so we don't want to again, stop the meeting and make sure that we have to reconvene or anything if there are any technical issues because of that lack of connection. This is just being streamed. So in my opinion, it's a little different.
Okay.
Great questions, everybody. Great questions. Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, do we have a motion for adoption?
I move we adopt the Village of Los Ranchos, Albuquerque Planning and Zoning Commission Resolution Number 2024 to P&Z.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Barrow has moved and Commissioner Baldwin has seconded. With that, it's a roll call vote again. Commissioner Barrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez?
Yes.
Commissioner Edward?
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Drew?
Yes.
Commissioner Haywood?
Yes.
And Commissioner Homan, yes. All right. So the motion carries unanimously. And we go on to the next item on our agenda, which is election of officers for 2024. It is now time to elect these officers, and as was stated in what we've just approved, next year we will do it in February. But this year, right now, we're doing it here in March. Do we have a nomination for chair?
Yes, I would like to nominate Mary Holman as chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Well, darn.
What you doing, Mary? You've been sandbagged.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, well, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any other nominations before we go forward on this? No? Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Edward,
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin,
Yes.
Commissioner Drew,
Yes.
Commissioner Haywood,
Yes.
Commissioner Homan, I guess so.
Whoops.
Yes, oh boy, okay. So we now need a vice chair. Is there a motion for a vice chair?
I'd like to move Commissioner Barrow as vice chair of the P&Z Commission.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Barrow has been nominated for vice chair and it's been moved and seconded. Are there any other nominees? Seeing and hearing none, it's a roll call vote again. Commissioner Barrow,
Abstained.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Edward,
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin,
Yes.
Commissioner Drew,
Yes.
Commissioner Haywood,
Yes.
Commissioner Homan, yes. Congratulations, you're the vice chair. And
Also sandbagged.
that's right. One more sandbag to go, okay? So, secretary, we need a new secretary this year. Is there a motion for a secretary?
Yes, I would like to nominate Gwen Baldwin.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Are there any other nominees? Hearing none, we'll go forward with our vote. Commissioner Barrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinez,
Yes.
Commissioner Edward,
Yes.
Commissioner Baldwin,
Abstain.
Commissioner Drew,
Yes.
Commissioner Haywood,
Yes.
Commissioner Homan, yes. Congratulations. All right, so we've got our new elected officers to go forward. And with that now, we're on to our planning department report. Director Rubin, is there a report you can provide for us?
Chairman, there is a report that I can provide to you. So our big news in the village, I've already told you and you've read it. Unfortunately, we are down a code enforcement officer. We miss Thomas, we wish him all the best, but we are rehiring. The position is posted and we are hoping to fill the position very soon. Other big news, I have been working with our consultant Sandy Geiser on proposed edits to Ordinance 284 in preparation for review and recommendation by the Planning Commission and potential adoption by the board. So hopefully you will be seeing that very soon. And then lastly, I just want to welcome all of our new commissioners, all of our elected officers. We have a full planning commission again, which is really exciting. So I'm really looking forward to working with you all. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. Director Rubin, can I ask one thing? I know Commissioner Haywood doesn't have her equipment yet. Will we be getting it for her soon?
Yes, ma'am. We have the Surface Pro, and we've been working with Darnell to get it to her right away, post-haste.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So, Commissioners, informal discussion. Are there any information, reports anybody wants to make, comments? Any comments, but any updates from anybody? I'm not hearing it or seeing anything.
I guess the one thing that's kind of pregnant in the room, we're down a code enforcement officer, and then we've got all this hodgepodge stuff going on, and we want to clean it up. I mean, what level of activity are these guys doing in their daily course of business that we're going to head this stuff off? I mean, honestly, we shouldn't have to hear some of this stuff because things would get caught. And so I'm just kind of curious, how do How are these guys monitored? How much stuff are they doing? How many reports of violations do they turn in? How do they systematically cover the village?
I'm happy to answer that. Madam Chairman, Commissioner, so a summary of all of the letters of violation, the folks who are taken to court, all of that information is actually included in the board packet for my report. Feel free to look there every single month. I include it, except for this month because it's myself and Mr. Williams heading up the code enforcement, so we do what we can. We are responding to complaints, myself and Mr. Williams, and we're hoping to fill it real soon. But we do have a summary of those actions in those reports every month.
Okay.
So Director Rubin, do we get a flood of complaints each month? I mean, you know, I understand during spring and fall when everybody is really complaining about weeds and just litter that's blown around, but outside of those type, and dogs. Dogs, that seems to be the big one. Are there a lot of complaints from other things? I mean, I know there's some, but.
Madam Chair, I would say it's all over the map. We get, a lot of it comes down to some issues between neighbors that we can't litigate. We do our best and try to point them back to each other, to speaking with each other. Thomas, when he was here, did a great job of trying to de-escalate and solving problems before they get to district court, or you know, to municipal court, excuse me, and types of items. You've already heard the weeds and the trash and things like that. The dogs, a lot of dark skies violations, which we do our best to address, even though the code enforcement officer does not typically work at night. Sometimes he would need to take testimony from those neighbors, go inspect the light and see how the shielding is during the day and things like that. So yeah, dark skies would be the other one.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Well, wonderful. Then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll take the motion to adjourn.
Great, thank you.
And I'll
Second. And I'm sure everybody is going to complain and not say aye.
Commissioner Holman, could I address something after you've adjourned, just as a comment?
Yes, please.
I sat in this chair from 2005 to 2019, so I've seen a number of these kind of cases, and Commissioner Martinez asked a very pertinent question when it comes to variances. We have legally non-conforming uses in the village, and that is if a use was in existence at the time the zoning became applicable, it's legally non-conforming. But when our ordinance says that these are the criteria for a hardship, the more of those you grant that don't meet that, then the harder it is to deny the next one. And so in certain areas, I believe the village is at a point where if you don't grant the variance, you're going to lose when they appeal and go to court. Because if the test is look around and see what everybody else has done, then there's no standard besides what kind of a case the person makes when they come into the room. And sometimes it's sad to say people, you know, have to do something they don't want to do. These folks are very nice folks, but they say we can get by the 120, so we'll bend the rule and we'll go with 120-foot ones, you know, why not 10? And so this body is really charged with the concept of a technical analysis of what the zoning ordinances say and how they're enforced and whether or not the criteria for variances are met. And the more things that we do this way, and I've been there twice for the village already, says, okay, if you can't enforce it on these, can you enforce it in others? And so Commissioner Martinez was right on point with the concern that he has. And it's just something I can throw out because it's unfortunate people get caught and cost some money and things like that. And sitting here and I don't live in the village, I can be very sympathetic, but just one thing I wanted to say.
Is there, would it have, is there something, some administrative things? I mean, let's just say that when those people heard from the village that they could do the 120-foot deal, if there was a pink slip that they would just get at that time that they had versus a hearsay?
Yeah, I'm wondering, I don't know where that 120-foot building within the setbacks is. Is that in the ordinance? I'm not sure. I haven't gone back and looked at that. But there should be some official action to document what has occurred, because you hear this all the time. Oh, I talked to somebody, don't remember who it was, when it was, whatever, but we hear that a lot.
I forgot which thing I was responding to.
The 120.
Oh, the setbacks. So it is a structure, and there is a definition of structure, which is very, very small. I'm going to misquote it, but it's like 4 square feet or something. Brennan can find it on the fly. But if it meets the definition of a structure, which it does at 120 square feet, we do not allow structures within the setback. So while it does not need a building permit from the county under a certain size, then it does need to be out of the setback unless it is basically a doghouse. Unless you want the actual definition, but that's where it is. And we understand that it is confusing. It's heartbreaking as staff to hear that there might be any miscommunication or misinformation, and we hope that we didn't provide wrong information. We understand it's a little confusing between the village and the county with the building permits and the does it meet the FAR? It's a lot. So I really appreciate the comment about the vision article. I'll work on that.
Building permits are different than setbacks.
The one thing I thought that was interesting is that it's one thing to be in the setback, but I will say in that case, they're like all the way in the setback. I mean, that entire structure is completely within it. It's not like it's overlapping into it. Yeah, I drove out there. I mean, it's all in it. And so, I don't know. I would like things to look nice and be nice. And I think to at least the spirit of what these people are doing, they were living up to the spirit of that. Did it meet a technicality? No, it did not. But there's a lot of other houses on that street that didn't have an issue that I wish they took as good care of their place.
Great. We've adjourned. 8:15.
I hate people who don't have pride of ownership. I know. They shouldn't own something.
See, I had a hard time. With the fact that the brick shed next door could stay, and theirs would have to go down.
Well, it'll only have to stay, I mean,